back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith. We're going to pick things up where we left it off in the last video. We're still in chapter number 2. Vorn has been knocked down. Darkness is surrounding him, as you can see off to the right. And we have a Shadow Knight, a gigantic Shadow Knight we need to deal with, plus a couple chests laying around. But the darkness is closing in, and we really want to focus on using our focus in order to take out this Shadow Knight as quick as possible. Now, for those of you that haven't checked out the prior videos, I'll put a link to the entire thing in the top right hand corner right now. You can go check it out to get caught up. But without further ado, let's dive right into the start of a round with Vorn. So Vorn is knocked over, as I mentioned, and basically how this works is I'm knocked down until I use some type of movement. Then that movement is washed away. I don't get the benefit of that action, and then I can continue on as my character can stand up from that point forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my generic action, which is a move 3 that I get during every single turn for Vorn. I'm going to wash that away just to get him back on his feet. He was knocked down, but he wasn't knocked out, and now I'm going to go ahead and use a green cube on my character's dashboard to do Bull Rush. Bull Rush is going to allow him to move 3, and then up to 2 target adjacent enemies are going to take 2 damage. Now, this isn't going to do much because remember, the Shadow Knight has 2 shields, but it's all in preparation for using the Hammer Crush. So Vorn is going to head north as far away from the darkness as he can possibly get. And just like that, he's in position. We're now going to remove the 2 shields from the Shadow Knight. He's lucky he had that, otherwise this would have gone through. With that all squared away, now we're going to go ahead and spend 3 focus to do Hammer Crush. This should be a lot of fun. So as you can see here, it costs 3 focus, as it mentions right here for Hammer Crush. We get a +3 to our hit, and then another +3 to our hit because it's 2 back-to-back attacks with a +2 damage on top of it. So we're going into this with a serious boost. We just need 4 and above in order to land hits here, which is pretty good. Vorn uses his bloody axe and throws it wildly at the Shadow Knight. Let's see if it lands. Yes, it does, and it doesn't land really well, but it does land. It's an 8, as you can see, just faintly down there in the bottom of the screen. So that's going to be 5 damage straight through to the Shadow Knight. Health has dropped from 10 down to 5, a massive, massive hit. You can see how powerful this focus ability really is. We now get to do another attack right after it with that +3 hit modifier. Vorn pulls back and really throws everything he's got into this. Does he land it? Let's find out. It is a 9. That is a success, and another 5 damage going to the Shadow Knight, which will take it out. And that, my friends, is how it is done. Now, the one thing that I didn't do yet that I should have done is anytime on your turn when you walk into darkness, moving through it, so I step from a space that didn't have darkness into a space with darkness, you actually take 2 damage. Now, you can prevent this if you wish, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. I had a yellow cube still left to spend, so I'm going to prevent the darkness, but it's worth mentioning you should do this when you actually make the movement. I just got a bit excited to get in there and start attacking. So for clarity, I put that yellow cube that I had here into the divert here, which is a reaction to prevent 3, so that 2 damage doesn't come through to me. So now we're going to do a unwilling recall where all the cubes are coming back and we have to place a curse cube. I'm going to go ahead again and place it in the Whirlwind of Steel. You might be wondering, why do I keep putting it in that one versus any other one? Well, it's tough call either way. I mean, that's still a good ability. Being able to shield up 2, and then, of course, being able to target 2 adjacent enemies and do a damage to them, that's a good ability. I just have another one that can do 2 damage, and that's Bull Rush, and I'd honestly rather keep that one. There's also a passive ability that I've kept enabled the whole time, rolling over 16, but I haven't hit it yet, so that might have been actually a better one to get rid of, as it doesn't happen that often. But if your rolls are going your way, then maybe you don't want to put a curse there. All right, so all that's resolved, and again, apologize for doing the darkness damage there a little bit out of turn, but that's all squared away and no gameplay impact. We're sitting right on top of an interaction token, so I don't see any reason why we shouldn't do a minor action here and find out what's there. The token only had 1 interaction on it, so it's been removed. I've also taken my miniature away for a second because I want you guys to actually see that printed on the tile itself, the actual tile in the game tray there, is literally the picture that you're seeing in the interactions book. Again, these things are tied in so well. So here are our options. On the left-hand side, we have check the water holes. At the very top, pray for his soul. In the middle, examine a broken necklace. Down a little further, examine his wound. To the right, steal his treasure, if we want to be a bit greedy. But on the left, there is an iron chest. So many options. Now, this is honestly a really, really tough decision. The chest is very interesting, but it is, or it looks like it's locked, although I'm not 100% sure. It says pick up the iron chest, so I don't even know if I'll be able to gain entry to it right away. I don't have a key on me currently, but there might be some kind of skill check involved with opening it up. I'm going to leave that for you guys to discover on your own. There's also treasure sitting right there. There's a bunch of really obvious ones that seem to pull at me, but I'm going to do something a bit different. I'm actually going to do the one way at the top, the one that might not be done that often, which is to pray for his soul. And inside of the book, it states you start to pray for the old gods to protect the poor priest's soul. As you go on with your prayer, the priest's body starts to emit a dim light, which gets stronger and stronger. And when the light is so strong that it starts to dazzle you, it leaves the priest's body and heads to the darkness in the corner of the room. You see the light battle the shadow tentacles that move forward and sizzle as they come into contact with it. The light moves ahead, dispelling part of the darkness. Then it shoots upwards into the sky, leaving the room a little less gloomy than before. We get to remove one darkness tile from the map and one rune from the initiative track. The rune that you remove doesn't have to be the same one that you placed in terms of the tile that you're choosing to remove. So they can be different in terms of the shape of them. So that's pretty cool, because you'll remember I put that humongous tile, that darkness tile down there on the right-hand side of this shot. I think that's the one I want to get rid of. Now, this is going to be kind of interesting, because looking at the darkness tile that I'm most likely to remove, as I mentioned, that giant space 6 tile, I'm going to get rid of that one, I think, just so I can make a beeline towards the door. But it's worth mentioning I only have one more cube action to spend with Vorn before his turn's over, which might be enough movement to get me going and then get me to the chest. I could maybe interact with that. That'll end off his turn, but then we'll be drawing a rune and another darkness tile will be coming back. So we'll see how safe I really am. But for now, some of the darkness has been vanquished. I think in terms of using a cube, and rather than going ahead and using it for the Path of Strength, I'm actually going to use it for First Aid, which will give me 3 movement, what I'd normally get from this, but I can heal 2, and it'll be nice to jump from 11 back up to 13. It's also worth noting, for those who are wondering which rune that I chose to take away, I just did it, took away one of the blue ones. It is the highest stack across my initiative track. Vorn will use his 3 movement to get adjacent to the chest, and that's about as far as he can go, and then he's going to interact with it. At this point, we're going to go ahead and draw something from the chest deck. We're also going to be rolling the trap die too. Let's find out what's inside this chest. This looks pretty good. We got a potion of speed. This is a consumable. We can discard it for ourselves, and you may take another 1 cube action this turn. That could come in super handy in the future. All right, let's go ahead and roll the trap die and see if anything nasty happened when we open the chest. Oh, we got ourselves a blank result. Very, very lucky. So unlike the last time when I was poisoned by checking out a chest, this time I got lucky and nothing bad happened. I actually got something very useful out of it, as I did last time, except for the poison factor. Right here, right now, I need to make a choice. I mean, my turn is done, but in terms of what I'm gunning for, I could just head straight for the door on my next turn, or there's another chest. And that chest didn't just or won't always be there. That would have been an event token, and it would have just been a stagnant event token with nothing else you could do with it. But because of the fact that I interacted with the interactions book in a specific way, it turned that event token into a treasure chest, which is going to have me going back to the treasure deck, and it's completely random what I might find there. So it's not like I'm going to find, at least in this particular scenario, something specific pulled from the deck, but it's still something positive. And that's what's driving me to potentially dip down into the darkness pool there and try to get it. But do I need to? Well, probably not. It might be a little bit of a waste of time to head down that direction and try to get back through it again, plus the fun of taking damage on my next turn when I do so. Now, it's also worth noting, for those of you who are wondering about how much damage and how often you take it from the darkness, on your turn, you're only going to take 2 damage once as you traverse through the darkness. So, in other words, if I hadn't got rid of the tile of darkness that was sitting, well, basically right where I'm standing, If I had to move back down there to interact with the chest, I wouldn't have taken 2 more damage because I already took 2 damage for traversing through darkness earlier in the turn. It only happens once per hero on your turn. But, you know, as luck would have it, I got to get rid of one of the tiles, but Vorn's turn's over. We're now going to move the initiative marker over to drawing another rune, and guess what? Darkness is coming back. Let's find out what we get from the bag. Drawing a token, we have another blue. Wow, okay. And this one's going to be a kind of a half H shape. I also want to mention that off screen, I've also flipped over the rune card, so the next time we'll be drawing 2 runes instead. Now, looking at this space where I'm currently sitting, there's a darkness spawn point hiding in the bottom right-hand corner, and there's one way up in the top left-hand corner. Not really top left, it's really just very much north. But that one's further away than the one down on the same level as me, so the one from that level is going to continue to branch out towards me, which means this shape is going to fit on the game board. And as it's not my turn, it's actually the rune's turn, if that's even a thing, the darkness turn basically. It has caught me in darkness, and because of this, even though it's not inside my turn, I am still going to suffer 2 damage right now. Now I can try to prevent this by using a cube, which I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and use my Defender 2 ability, a red cube over here to prevent the 3, which is actually preventing 2, so no issues from the darkness, no damage taken. Well, based on the tile of darkness that came out in the game board and the way it's situated, there is no free-flowing path back to that door, so I am going to guarantee to take at least 2 damage if I head for that chest and then try to head back to the door. There's no way around it. I would have had to take 2 damage regardless, because even going into the darkness pool would have caused that to happen. So, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to say whether taking damage or trying to prevent it and burning cubes and potentially getting more curses quicker is a good idea or a bad idea. I don't necessarily need that chest to be opened right now, and of course there could even be a trap associated with it because you have to roll that die. So the more I think about it, the more I go, this may not be the best option for me. Maybe I'll leave that alone and we'll just move towards door number 3. So I have a regular 3 allotment of movement. I'll use 1 to get to the door. We'll do a minor action and see what's behind it. There's nothing saying I can't come back and interact with it afterwards once I see what's behind this next door. The altar of the goddess. Across what was once a reflective pool, you see a broad hall supported by 4 massive pillars. In the center is a magnificent statue of a long-forgotten goddess. Judging by her garb and the mastery of the sculptor, it appears that both statue and goddess belong to an ancient time. The only light is a set of dimly glowing runes carved into the floor on the far side of the room. Something about them reminds you of tales you have heard of mythic portals. Now, there's a couple things about this setup that I want to talk about before I actually do them for those of you that are new to the game. Now, on the far right-hand side of the setup, you can see the tile B3F with an asterisk beside it. It's sitting right over here. Now, it has that asterisk because it relates to a special rule in the bottom right-hand corner of the setup. It'll tell you in this case that if you had secret passage written on your campaign log, you would have this particular area open to you. Otherwise, you don't. Now, for me, I pulled a secret lever. I did not get secret passage as part of my campaign log, so I won't gain access to that area based on my prior interactions. Again, ways in which the game is changing as you play it based on your prior interactions and prior decisions. The other thing I want to point out here is right in the middle where it lists out the enemies for solo play, which is above the dotted line that you can see right here. Just at the very top it says B1, which just tells you the area that enemy is going to sit inside, but it's going to let you know that it's going to be a black monster. That's what BM stands for. It's rookie level. So it's not specifying which monster. It's just saying go find every single rookie level monster you have in black, shuffle them together, and pull one at random. Now, if you have the stretch goals and additional add-ons and expansions for this game, that's where this is really going to flush out how much variability you have with all the different monsters. If you're just working with the core game, you'll only have a set amount of monsters to pull from here. So in this case, I have the Abomination and the Shadow Knight that could come out, one of those, and the Shadow Cultist and the Skeleton Archer for the white one on the far right. So in order to do this fairly, I'm basically just going to place the cards behind my back, and I'm going to shuffle them around enough times that I've forgotten where and which one is in which hand, and I'm going to pull one right now. We're going to see which one we run into. We might run into the same Shadow Knight we had before, or maybe the Abomination. it's going to be a Shadow Knight. So those guys really want to come after us. And now we're going to do the exact same thing for the white cards. I'm going to go ahead, put them behind my back, shuffle them around a couple times until I don't know which one's which. And we're going to pull one at random, and it's going to be the Shadow Cultist. Here you can see an entire setup complete. We have the Shadow Knight and the Shadow Cultist both in the gigantic room in the top right hand corner with a huge statue we can interact with. Now the actual setup states in this room that when the last monster is defeated, we proceed to chapter 2.1. So that is our main objective right now. Now Vorn opened the door. There's 3 blue spaces worth of water, which is even bigger and more spacious than the prior water we traversed. And then this giant open room we're going to have to go into. There is also a darkness spawn point in that giant room in the bottom left-hand corner. Both of the health for both individuals are set. You've seen these ones come before as rookies. So we have 10 health for the Shadow Knight and 6 health for the Shadow Cultist. The other thing to note is both of them initiative-wise are sitting near the tail end of the initiative track, and we've only used 1 movement point at the very beginning of Vorn's turn. So we have 2 more movements to use, and then we have 2 cube actions to use after that. The last thing I want to mention is just the structure of the dungeon alone. You'll notice way on the far left over here, I've taken away the prior tray that we began in. It just makes sense for space with this video, but I can tell you right now, all of this easily fits on the table. I'm using a 3x4 table, and it's taking up less than half of it currently, and there's still big pockets of space around. So I mean, you've got lots of room to be able to keep this stuff out on the game table as you play, and I definitely recommend it because you might want to actually traverse backwards while you're playing through the game and go back and interact with something you left behind if you have the ability to do so. But I'm guessing in most cases with the darkness spreading and the way the game is working, you may not want to go backwards, but we'll see. Of course, campaign-wise, things change as you get further and further into things and the game mechanics start to shift on you. So we're all set up now, and as I mentioned, Vorn is going to begin. We've got 2 points of movement. He's going to jump down into the pool of water, which will basically have him lose a point of movement. So he's going to head into the water and stop. That will end his movement, and then I'm going to have 2 action cubes to use to try to push him on further if I wish. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit terrified having not only the Shadow Knight but also the Shadow Cultist in there because this is going to become quite the battle. So I really need to be strategic in what I choose to do with these 2 cube actions. Now, knowing that I have 2 action cubes to spend, I also have that potion of speed, and that could come in really handy for what I plan to do against the Shadow Knight. That I think is going to be my major focus as he's closest to me, and I think tied into my turn plus a potential Hidden Blade retaliation when the Shadow Knight activates, I might be able to take it down if things go to plan, and we know how that goes based on the past. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do 2 cube actions here. The first one's going to be to use a blue cube in order to put this down here for Path of Strength, and that's going to allow me to get 3 movement. Now, why am I not doing the Bull Rush? Well, because I wouldn't be able to take advantage of the 2 damage. Using 3 movement at this point in time, I wouldn't be able to get adjacent to any enemies. So Vorn is going to move 1 a little bit east in the water there, lose a movement, and then move 1 more to step out of the water. For the last cube action of my turn, officially, I'm going to place the yellow one here in Defender 2, join the fray. It allows me to get 2 shields, which will come in handy later. I get to move 2, and then I get to make an attack with no adjustment to my hit value. Vorn's got a couple extra shields on him now, and again, I'll be using that potion of speed the second after I'm done resolving this action. Let's move Vorn and make the attack. I'm going to have Vorn actually move 1 to the east and then diagonally to the east as well. I don't really care too much about getting too close to the cultist because the cultist has 3 movement and regardless is going to be able to get to me because it has range 1. So as long as I'm attacking the Shadow Knight where it currently is, up close and personal, the cultist is going to be able to get to me. Vorn is now in position and we're going to go ahead and roll to see how well we do on this attack. Here's hoping that this goes to plan. Here is the roll. Let's see a critical success. Okay, a 10. That's still really good. And again, it had to be 7 or higher. And again, it hasn't been over 16 yet, so we don't get any benefits in terms of shielding up more with my passive ability. But hey, I still get damage going through. That's going to be 3, knocking him from 10 down to 7. My turn would normally be done right here, but I'm going to go ahead and discard this potion of speed to allow me to take another 1 cube action this turn. So this card is gone. The yellow cube on my dashboard is going to go to the guarding strike attack. This is going to give me another 2 shields. At maximum, I can have 4 shields, so I'm fully maxed out in that capacity, and I'll put the token in a second. We get a +2 to our hit, which means a 5 on the die or higher is going to be considered a success, and we get an extra damage, so we're doing 4 damage if we get a successful hit. Now you might be wondering, why am I gunning so heavily to do these attacks knowing I can't kill it? Well, I'm setting myself up to be able to do a hidden blade retaliation for 3 damage. If I get 4 damage on this thing, I'm going to bring it down to 3, and when it does attack me, which it will, I'll be able to instead take the damage it throws at me and then retaliate on it, killing it. And that's what I'm hoping to pull off. So let's go ahead and roll and hope that the roll is what we want to see, which is a 5+. Got a 16, the first 16, and guess what? The worst time possible to get it, because, as we know for the Bloody Axe, 16 or higher gives us a bleed 2 condition on this Shadow Knight, but the Shadow Knight can't suffer bleed. So that's a wash, and then my passive ability states whenever I roll 16+, I get to self-shield 2. Well, guess what? I'm maxed out on shield, so I don't get advantage on anything here, even though I finally rolled a 16 or higher. But I'm a-okay with it because I had everything I needed to set myself up to take down the heaviest hitter of the 2 monsters, and that is going to do it for Vorn's turn, and the next individual to activate is going to be the Shadow Cultist. In the open and play video which I did, which ran through chapter number 1, we saw a Shadow Cultist. For those of you that have watched it, you'll understand what its abilities do, but basically it attacks from range and is a multi-shot too, so it can hit 2 heroes if there were to. It doesn't matter in this case. And Curse 1 will just have me place a Curse Cube on my dashboard. Again, this is all conditional on the damage actually hitting me. Now, technically right now, I'd be able to do a reaction if I choose to, but regardless, I still need to do an unwilling recall right here. Probably should have done it right at the tail end of my turn. Doesn't have any gameplay impact, but as soon as you run into cubes, you're going to run right into that where you have to recall everything back. So I do have to place a Curse Cube in here, and I'm going to get all my cubes back to the center. And there we go. So we've gone ahead and blocked up our passive ability, so I won't be gaining 2 shields at this point. Remember, though, I can choose to go ahead and cleanse in order to get rid of a curse if I want to make use of this in the future. It just hasn't landed as much for me during this play. I have had it in past plays land more often, so sometimes when you feel like it's happening more often, you might want to stick with it, but in this case, I'd rather lose that than one of the attacking or movement-based abilities. Alright, so the Shadow Cultist wants to hit me from range 1. It's currently 2 range away from me, so it needs to move to get closer. It has 3 movements, so it's going to get in position right now. The cultist has shambled forward just enough to be able to make the attack, and it's quite happy with where it is. So 3 damage coming my way, and it's worth talking about the shields I have. I have to use the shields before I use any kind of cube as a reaction to prevent damage. So in this case, I have 4 shields, so 3 of them are going to be spent on preventing the 3 damage from the cultist, which means I don't have to worry about the curse or any other conditions that come along with the attack. Alright, so all is well for now, but I mean, all my shields are now basically almost gone, and we're moving to the next person on the initiative meter, and that is going to be the Shadow Knight. Pink down there at the very bottom of his card, it's going to shield 2. We know that it cannot be hit for any bleed condition based on the immunities it has on the left-hand side of the card, and it doesn't need to move, so it's engaged with me, or I'm engaged with it as we're adjacent to each other, so it will be going ahead and making an attack against me here, and it's going to be hitting me for 5. So here is where a strategic decision needs to be made. I know I have 5 damage coming at me from this Shadow Knight. I have to use the 1 shield I have, so that will reduce it down to 4. And from there, I have a choice on 1 reaction that I can do for this event that's happening to me. I could choose to try and prevent 3 of it and just take 1 damage and maybe try to kill it on my next turn. But I really want to save all of my next turn to go after the cultist and wipe it out completely. So why not just take this hit, even though it's decently substantial at 4 damage. It'll drop me from 13 down to 9, but then I will immediately trigger the Hidden Blade. So I've taken the damage. The other thing that's going to happen to me is I'm going to be knocked down. So I'm going to lay my miniature over. I'm also going to be dropping a token here to remind me of this. The token has been placed, and I've also placed a blue cube, as you saw in the last shot, on the Hidden Blade, because I am absolutely going to use a reaction here to retaliate for 3. Unfortunately, though, the one thing that I overlooked in my strategy, thinking I needed a clean 10 HP to kill this thing, is that the Shadow Knight has 2 shields, because because it just got it when its turn activated or on the initiative meter right at the worst possible time. So even though it has 3 health and I thought I could get this kill shot straight through and take it out, I forgot about those 2 shields, so only 1 damage is going to get through, which means it still has 2 health. So this thing does not want to go down, but Vorn, on the other hand, has been taken down. His miniature has also been laid over just to represent the fact that he has been knocked down. We're now done with the Shadow Knight's turn, and we're going to go to drawing 2 runes from the bag. Not really looking forward to what's about to happen. The first rune from the bag is this one right here, and it is in a L shape. And the second rune out of the bag is this one right here, and it looks like this. So Vorn has been caught up in the darkness as it extends towards him. Again, you'd only use the 3 smaller tiles if the tile that you drew does not fit on the game board. This one does fit, so it is placed and it's crawling towards him and even beyond it. And unfortunately, that's going to be 2 damage going to him. I do have the ability to react right now and try to block that damage though. I'm going to use a red cube over here for Defender 2 to prevent 3 that will block the damage coming towards me. The rune card has been flipped over and Vorn now gets to activate. I'm going to go ahead and use his regular action allotment of 3 movement in order just to stand back up, which will get rid of his knockdown token as well. Now that Vorn is standing up, he's going to go ahead and do a really cool move he has called Bull Rush. Move 3 up to 2 target adjacent enemies are going to take 2 damage. This is going to take out the Shadow Knight. Vorn's going to move from his current position here 2 spaces to the east in order to be adjacent to not only the point of interaction but also 2 enemies, so both the cultist as well as the Shadow Knight will both take 2 damage apiece. So that worked out pretty well. I was able to take out the Shadow Knight. The cultist took 2 damage. However, I did move from being on darkness at the beginning of my turn, which I don't take a 2 HP hit for, but because I moved to a position where there was darkness and moved through it, I'm going to take 2 damage right now. I have to choose whether I want to take that or try and prevent it. I'm going to go ahead and use my plate armor, a yellow cube there, in order to prevent that damage from occurring, and being that I'm adjacent to the cultist with my last cube action for Vorn's turn, I'm going to place it on guarding strike because it's going to give me 2 shields, a +2 hit modifier, and an additional damage on my 3 damage attack, which is 4. So if I land this, this cultist is dead. So I need a 5 or higher to make this a reality. Let's see how it goes. Oh, just barely made it. That's successful. The cultist has been taken out, and that is going to trigger what we saw in the door card earlier on. Also, I may need to do a unwilling recall right now, so I'll think about that. I'll just take a look to see what is coming up next. As you can see in the bottom right-hand corner of this door card, this is the one that we set up for the room we're currently in. It says special rule number 2, when the last monster is defeated, which it just was, proceed immediately to chapter 2.1, the Undead King's Chamber on page 8. Now I can tell you right now, this is where I'm going to stop, because as you move further into this, things around spoilers are going to become a little bit more prevalent, and I like to keep a lot of this stuff for you to explore on your own. So that's going to wrap up this playthrough, but it's not necessarily the end. It's just for this point in time, to avoid spoilers, I'm going to stop here as I mentioned, and maybe in the future we'll revisit Vorn and continue his adventure into chapter 2.1 from where we are right here, and we'll wait until more individuals have the base game and have had a chance to play up to this point and past it to avoid any major spoilers inside the game. But I really hope that not only the open and play guide, which covered chapter 1 and really got a handle on the rules for all of you watching, as well as this video and the prior one covering chapter 2, gives you a great idea as to whether or not this game is for you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, keep on rolling solo.